This podcast is brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. As you all know, this is a business that I started to give back more to conservation. We roast premium coffee and it ships out within hours of roasting. This guarantees that when you order, you get the freshest coffee possible available. The kicker, we donate 10% of our proceeds back to conservation. You choose where the donation goes at checkout. Check us out at skullbrewcoffee.com and let's do some good together and help protect wild places one cup at a time. Visit skullbrewcoffee.com and pledge your support of conservation today. Hello and welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 120. Today I'm hanging with my good friend Tom Titlow of Relive the Hunt, and we're talking whitetails and turkey. So stay tuned. All right. What is happening, folks? Happy Wednesday to you. You are listening to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And first, before we get this party started, I have to take care of a little bit of, it's not business, but I have to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day this past Sunday. I hope all of you had a chance to kick your feet up for those of you mothers who actually are listening to this podcast. If you are not listening and the husbands are or the dads are, I hope you were able to give your better half a day off and allow her to kick her feet up and enjoy her day. We had some kind of crappy weather here on Sunday here for Mother's Day in PA, but we made the best of it. We just kind of hung out inside. My daughter and I made some breakfast for my wife and just kind of relaxed and enjoyed each other's company, allowed her to kind of take a day off and not have to really do anything that she didn't want to do, which is great considering that, you know, she puts up with my BS for 364 days out of the year. So I guess she could have at least one. She's entitled to many more than that, but happy to do Mother's Day for her and try to do it right. This past weekend before Mother's Day, I did get a chance to actually, first let me back up for a second and say that I had yet another failed turkey hunt, and we'll get into the details of that at some point, but it's not a whole lot to talk about. So what I did was I ended up turning my attention to scouting on Saturday, and actually hit up a new piece that a friend of mine had turned me on to. So there's a buddy of mine who he's a new buddy of mine. He's actually a friend through from Chad and the fellows at Exodus. And he used to actually live, not Chad, but our mutual friend now, used to live near me. And had a couple different pieces that he hunted that he had some big deer on. And, for those of you that have been following the podcast for a little while, you know that last year I was hunting some suburban swamp areas around where I live and had some really good deer on it. So it's not as though good deer aren't in the area. It's just finding them can be a challenge because it's a lot of small parcels. It's a lot of kind of suburb, urban style hunting. Even the game lands or the state lands, you get some smaller chunks that can be dealing with some pretty nasty pressure and so forth. And so it really kind of takes, some digging around to find a couple pieces that might be overlooked or where, a couple, good deer might be hiding out. And so this particular gentleman, and I'll have him on the podcast here at some point, and we'll talk about, how he goes out rooting out good deer, and he has a pretty slick method for getting permission and stuff like that too. So we'll talk to him probably about that as well. But because he doesn't live in the area anymore and he moved to Ohio, Chad reached out to me and was like, hey, I have a buddy. He used to live around your area. Good dude. He might have some places you might want to check out. And he said, he'd give you a heads up on a couple spots that he used to find that were pretty productive. And so we started texting back and forth, and he sent me a couple locations, and I had a chance to go out and check one of them out yesterday, and it looks pretty freaking good. I actually jumped a deer out of its bed, so I found a bedding area for sure. Big-bodied deer, don't know, this time of year, who knows? It could have been, I didn't see it for too terribly long, so it could have been a doe who was taken off to try to distract me from maybe where, her bedding area is and so forth. Maybe it could have been a buck. I don't know. A little too early to be able to see any type of velvet growth in these parts, and if they are, they're just barely popping to where it's like I didn't get a chance to really, examine. But nonetheless, there was a lot of deer sign in this area. It's in kind of back behind a housing development, and there's kind of an industrial area that's near this. So I was able to kind of get in there and do some checking and got a camera hung. So we'll give that a good soak, and I'll probably wait till, I don't know, probably July sometime, and I'll cruise back in there and see what I have on camera. It's going to be interesting this year to kind of figure out how I parse out my time on a couple of these pieces. The good news is that this piece and one other piece that I yet need to scout, that he turned me on to, are actually on my way to work, or on my way to work in a very roundabout way. So, you know, it's quite possible that I could catch some morning hunts, in this location, before work, and get in and hunt for just a couple hours and slide into the office. And then depending, early October, I can probably get out, if I get out in a reasonable amount of time out of the office. I can probably slide to one of these spots and get just a couple hours in before dark and get some evening hunts in. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more examining, but first glance, it kind of looks like this is going to be a good, more like evening spot. There's a couple, what I'll say, quote unquote, food sources. And it's not food like, folks living in farm country would think of food, per se. It's just a big kind of overgrown field that, I don't know if it gets mowed for hay or what the deal is. I'm gonna guess probably not. But that is kind of what is adjacent to this bedding area that I kind of stumbled into. And I'm imagining that all the trails kind of pinch down. There's two really nice pinch points, that kind of go out into this area where I'm imagining that they're feeding, and it's pretty obvious kind of the path that they're taking. So I'm imagining that this area is probably going to be a good evening spot, but we'll kind of let the cameras kind of talk to us a little bit and tell us, and I'll go in and try to see, during the course of the year, once deer start laying down some serious sign, and see if I can figure out, if the place gets hot or not. Because this time of year, I'm not able to tell. I see some old rubs and so forth. At this point, there's enough green on the ground that I'm not able to see, if there was any historical, or scrapes anywhere that I could necessarily tell. But I will say that there are some goat paths in there as far as how the deer are traveling. So that's good news. So I did find a tree, and just kind of prepped a tree. And when I say prepped a tree, there wasn't a ton to prep necessarily. I just kind of cleared out a little bit of the brush that was down along the bottom of the tree, because there's a, I'm gonna just, I don't remember which direction I was facing, to be quite honest, but we'll just say if we're going with the normal north, south, and east and west, there was a trail that was running north and south, and there was another trail that was running east and west that kind of intersect right near this, right by this tree. And I got maybe 15 yards, maybe 20 yards off this intersection, and then there's a trail that was kind of lower along this creek bottom that was going out to, where that fallow field was as well. So, found a nice tree, kind of cleaned out some brush around it and stuff like that. I'll have plenty of time to go back in and kind of prep it further if I need to, but that at least is where I'm going to start, my hunting there. And the challenge with some of these suburban spots really is trying to find your access in. It's the easiest way in would probably be like if you had access through someone's property to be able to walk through someone's backyard into one of these places, but you typically don't. So you're usually kind of forced to find like some type of, in this case, some type of dead end street, which nobody owns that piece of the property where I can slide into this, this particular area. Because otherwise, it's kind of surrounded by property that's owned, and there's really only one little gateway in. And that's part of the challenge that I've been running up to. This would be really just the second year that I've done any type of urban/suburban hunting. And that to me is probably one of the biggest challenges that I've had in these particular scenarios, is just getting the right access. Because it's not like, state game lands, that is, maybe it has some houses around it and stuff like that, but you have enough entry points that you can usually find what I'll say, an accommodating way in, to not screw up your hunt, too awful bad. When you're hunting some of these parcels that are, maybe 20, 30, 40, acres, in terms of size, but it's completely surrounded by, private, landowners, or, basically it's a housing development of some sort. You're really at a disadvantage to find a way in, because everything is pretty much owned around it. And it's usually like these little islands of land that are accessible, in between, or or behind these areas that you have, that you have access to, or they have permission to. Which was the same case that I had on that piece that I was hunting in that swamp this year, where it was like, yes, it was a public accessed area, but it was privately owned pretty much all around it, and there was one way in and one way out, unless you had permission by one of the neighbors, and they all pretty much have their property pretty heavily posted. This particular area isn't what I would call a hunter-centric kind of area per se. Everyone kind of owns a small lot, acre lot that kind of surrounds this piece. So I don't think that they're going to be super favorable, allowing me to walk through their yard to get back there to hunt. So the good news is that the access that I do have, or the 2 access points that I did kind of discover, I think either of them will work, just depending on which part of the piece I want to hunt, because there's 2 areas that I think that I might want to focus on. So depending on which piece I'll be hunting or which section I'll be hunting, I have 2 possible ways in, so that's good. There's also a small stream there too, so I could take the stream in as well if push came to shove, just depending on how high it is. It's not a super, big stream, not super deep. But of course, just depends on how, wet the weather's been and how deep it is in certain spots. I didn't walk the whole thing, so, it has a possibility in the dark of getting wet, so we'll try to avoid that. But that's what I did this past weekend. Got a little deer work in, which was good. I'll look forward to scouting the next piece, hopefully in the next week or 2, and then I'll be headed back here over here in the next 2 weeks or so to get ready to put some food plots in on the family property back home at my dad's piece. I think I mentioned this in the past, but I'm going to be doing soybeans. So probably be the end of this month that we'll do that and get some cameras out, and we'll be getting ready for Velvet Fest. And speaking of Velvet Fest, it's not quite here yet, but did want to make a mention and give you guys a quick reminder that Exodus is running a deal right now. They've been in business now for 4 years, and this month, May, marks their 4-year anniversary of being open. And so as a way of saying thank you, they wanted to pass along some savings to all the listeners of this particular podcast. So from now to the 28th, you can use the code YEAR4, that's YEAR, the number 4, to save 25% on the Exodus Lift 2, the Exodus Trek, and they also have a newly released solar panel. So head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and check them out. Use that promo code YEAR4 and save yourself some cash and get ready for Velvet Fest. One other thing to make quick mention, I know I mentioned it on the last podcast, but the BHA, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, are throwing a huge East Coast party, or their version of the rendezvous called Muster in the Mountains, here on June 22nd and 23rd, and this is in Morris, Pennsylvania. It's completely free. All you need to do is go to the BHA website and go to the Pennsylvania chapter, and there'll be a Muster in the Mountains link, or you can just Google Muster in the Mountains, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and it will come up, and you can RSVP and let folks know that you're coming. It's completely free. There's going to be a lunch. There's going to be a dinner. There's going to be a bunch of games, a bunch of competitions. There's going to be music. Of course, there's going to be beer. Myself and my wife will be there. We'll be selling some coffee, and I'll be doing some podcasting as well. So we hope to see all you folks out there visiting the Muster in the Mountains. So with that, I have a cool show today. I'm hanging out with my buddy Tom Titlow. So Tom is a Pennsylvania fella. He's born and raised in this area. Been hunting this area for a long time, and Tom's one of those dudes I've met just a handful of years ago, maybe two or 3 years ago. We live maybe 30 minutes from one another, but it seems like we can only ever get together when we see each other at ATA, which is we travel, however far to do that. But recently we've made more of a point. We did some shed hunting together this year. We talked about doing some deer hunting together last year. He's the one who turned me on to the conservancy that I'm a member of, that for that piece, that property that I hunted last year. Hopefully we'll have plans to do a turkey hunt at some point, but Tom just has a knack of getting it done when it comes to turkeys. Killed a great deer last year. And it's just a good storyteller, man. So, super stoked to have Tom on, and I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. Today, you got a special treat.
Yes, you do.
This one's been a long time in the making. I'm here with my buddy Tom Titlow from Relive the Hunt. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Happy to be here. This is a long time coming. It seems like we never can get together ever, and we're neighbors, basically.
Yeah, exactly, dude. We always make fun with each other where we met at ATA, right, 2 years ago.
Yes.
Like, I knew you, or I should say I knew of you, and I knew that you lived around here.
Well, I'm Insta famous.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we were following each other on Instagram and Facebook, I think, because I knew of Cole and I knew of the podcast,
right.
And I knew you from that. And then we had a bunch of mutual friends, and then we met at ATA, and then we, of course, you're at ATA, and you always this is the cool thing about trade shows is that you meet a ton of people. The bad thing about trade shows is that you make a bunch of promises to a bunch of people that you're going to go hang out that you never hang out with until the next trade show. And that was kind of what happened with us, where it was like we knew we lived like 30 minutes apart from each other. I was like, hey man, we should totally be hanging out. And
it would make total sense.
it would make too much sense. But we never see each other except for ATA. Even though we live 30 minutes away, we travel 1,000 miles, and that's usually where we hang out.
Well, I said it to you this year at ATA. I said, hey, Clint, nice to see you again. It hasn't been since last ATA.
Right, exactly. Well, it's funny because we'll text all year long, about hunting or whatever, and it just never works out that we're able to get together. I mean, it doesn't help that we work different schedules to a degree, which is always kind of a challenge. But I of course know you. You're a good buddy of mine. We talk a lot of hunting together. We shed hunt together, scout together, shoot together, and all those things. But for those folks out there that don't know who you are, if you wouldn't mind, just give a little background about yourself, what you do for a living, those types of things.
Okay, yeah, I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia. I am a sheet metal worker in Local 19. Work currently out of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. I don't do much traveling for work. Everything is basically located in Center City, Philadelphia, and some outside of the suburbs. And sheet metal worker is, if you got anybody that don't know what that is ductwork, HVAC, contracting. Basically, I go into the high risers downtown and install ductwork, demo ductwork, install new things, retrofitting stuff in office buildings for tenant fit outs and stuff like that. So it's a well-paying job, a good career, and that's basically work so I can go hunting.
Right. And you've been doing this for a long time too, man. Like this is something you got into like right out of school, right?
Yeah, I was 19 years old.
Didn't your family do this too?
Yeah, my dad was in it. He just retired, so good for him.
Yeah, living that good life.
Heck yeah, man. He just bought a nice bass boat.
There you go.
And he's dying to get it out.
Nice.
But yeah, I got in the union when I was 19, with influence from my family, of course.
Right.
And it's probably one of the best decisions I ever made as a career choice. If I would have known about how the outdoor industry worked when I was 19, I probably would have went that route instead.
Right.
But I can't complain with what I do now.
Yeah.
Health benefits and
yeah,
the well-paying job pays my bills, and it pays for me to be able to do what I love to do. So
yeah. And I know that you get, I'm always envious of you so this time of year, I'm not so envious because I'm a morning person, but you're up early, dude.
Yeah, this morning I started at 5 a.m.
Yeah, and I'm still like sawing logs at 5 a.m. But when deer season rolls around, right, it's like, man, you're in early and you're out with daylight to burn to where you can actually get some evening hunts in.
Oh, absolutely. I could hunt every single afternoon if I chose to. But
I feel like you do because I get a lot of texts from you.
Hey, seeing anything?
Yeah.
I'm not out, man. Still at the desk.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I'm staring at a computer right now. I hate you. Go back to work. But so why don't we start with, we're in the midst of turkey season, and, we can talk about my failed turkey season to this point, which would be
it's not
really
failed yet if you haven't gone.
Yeah. Because, I'm going to admit right here, which is terrible, that I have yet to get out for turkey season. So I started telling this story a little bit, and I'll tell it with you, because so Tom and I do some scouting together, and this, we'll talk about this a little later when we get into another section of the podcast, but, I've probably the past like year, 2 years since I kind of started looking at some pieces to hunt around our area. Because for the longest time, I was traveling back home to hunt for the most part because we had the family property, and, I'd make the 3.5 hour drive. I really just wasn't familiar with some of the places around here. I'd start to kind of test some out and didn't have any real luck. And then finally this year I started kind of exploring, I guess past years I started exploring a little bit more with the help of you, kind of saying, hey, there's a spot over here you might want to check out, or, just you have some, historical knowledge of the area that you kind of helped me out with, which was great. And so I found this turkey spot that I told you about.
Right.
And you were like, oh yeah. You're like, I know exactly where you're at. You're like, yeah, I think that'd probably be a pretty good spot. It's 66 acres. It's small. Marked it on the GPS. And I was like, perfect. I was like, first day of turkey season, I'm going to head out there. I was like, it's a small piece. It's only like 66 acres. So it's probably going to be overlooked. Like shit, probably nobody be on it. I'm like, cool. So I get up early, opening day, get out there plenty of time. It's dark out. I'm driving up to it. I pull up to like the little parking area, and there's already 5 trucks parked there. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I thought this was like a slam dunk.
Yeah,
so
welcome to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was a slam dunk, so I didn't have a backup piece at all to like try to go to. I ended up turning around, just coming home and like mowing my grass, and like there was a bunch of tree limbs I had to cut down. So at like 6 o'clock in the morning, I was back by like 6:30. I'm out there like sawing off, tree limbs and stuff like that. During the turkey opener, and then last weekend we had friends in town, so I wasn't able to get out for that. So this weekend is the weekend I'm gonna finally get out, but
you got to do it.
Yeah. It's one of those things, man, where it's, we were talking about this just a little bit before we started recording, where it's, your buddy Cole that you do the podcast with, you were saying, he doesn't get out to turkey hunt much, which I'm kind of in the same
Right.
boat, where it's
not that he doesn't want to. He
Right.
just either A, doesn't have the time, or B, doesn't prioritize it like most people or other people do.
Right. And John and I have even talked about this, but John does, he likes to turkey hunt. Like he makes a point to get out. And for me, it's one of those things where, I ask a lot of my wife, like from, mid-September till,
Right.
after Christmas, and sometimes even beyond that, because I'll hunt late season if I don't have, meat in the freezer or whatever. And so basically those months, like she knows, like weekends, like unless it's a bad weather Saturday, it's like I'm not going to be around, at
Right.
all. And any day that I have off from work, as long as it's not a Sunday, and fingers crossed that we get Sunday hunting.
Fingers are crossed.
For the love of
Praying
God.
for that.
Yeah. If otherwise it's like, if I'm off on a day, it's like I'm in the woods, especially once you hit October,
Absolutely.
mid to late October, I'm in dark to dark, at least early part of the season. It's like I'll predominantly hunt evenings unless I have some intel that tells me I should be in there in the morning. And she doesn't complain at all. She doesn't say a word. She just lets me do what I want to do.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so
you won't find too many women that allow you to do that.
Yes, exactly. So my wife is a gem. And so I almost feel like, during that time of year, it's like there's like yard work stuff I let go that I don't do. I'll mow the grass and do the stuff that has to get done, but like the stuff that's like project based, I just blow it all off until spring hits. And then once the weather breaks, it's like I basically make a mad dash from like end of March to like end of August of like just doing everything I can possibly do around
I'm in the
house.
same boat, brother.
Yeah. And so, I went out that opening morning and I was like, I knew where there was another public piece that I thought there probably wasn't going to be anybody there because I really didn't think that it was going to be a great turkey spot. But I was like, if I want to get out, I was like, I could just drive to that. And it was only probably like 15 minutes away from where that original spot was. But as I passed that spot and I made it to as I passed the main spot and made it to like the next stoplight or stop sign rather, I was just sitting there at the stop sign thinking, I was like, man, I could go hunt. I was like, or this is how you know you're getting older. When you're, I was like, or I could go back home, pick up all that brush that I need to get out of the yard and cut down all those tree limbs I've been telling my wife I'm going to cut down
and gain some brownie points
and take care of all that. And there's a pile of stuff that I had done right before deer season came in last year that I had a pile in my backyard. I was like, and I can pick all that crap up and like take it to the dump and be there and done by like, early morning and be done. And then I can help her with some stuff around the house or whatever. And so that's what I did instead of turkey hunting, so as much as I wanted to go out and turkey hunt, I feel like I made a pretty good choice for the longevity of my hunting for this season.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, but
it's going to work out.
Yeah, but that's enough. So moral of the story here is like, I was a good husband. I'm going to try to be a good turkey hunter this weekend. So that's the plan. You, on the other hand, are able to, you're a do-it-all, man. You're like husband of the year.
Well, I'm not married yet.
Turkey killer. I'm just lumping you in, dude.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I mean, basically just say I am.
yeah, exactly. But you had a killer turkey season, man, so I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so far, so good. Usually every year, once turkey season gets around, I get fired up. I get really into it. I don't compare it with deer hunting because it's to me it's like two different levels. There's two different types of hunting and two different types of emotions and adrenaline rushes. It's different to me.
Yep.
But regardless, I do get into each one equally.
Right.
About the same. Like I'm hardcore. So yeah, I usually take off the first few days of the season. I get
so
up
that's
there.
how you know you're into it.
Yeah.
Like if you're taking time off from work to do it, like that's my criteria. It's like if I'm not
Yeah.
willing to take time off to do it, it's like it's just kind of like turkey hunting's a hobby for me.
Right.
Whitetail hunting for me is a passion. You know what I mean? It's like I will take off work, I will skip family functions, for that. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I take off. Usually I take off the first 3 days of the season. I really can't play it by the weather because with my job, I have to just say, hey, here's my notice.
Right.
I'm taking these couple days off. So it is what it is. I deal with whatever conditions are thrown at me.
Whatever you're handed. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually, within those you get this first Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In one of those 4 days, you're going to have a killer day, usually.
Right.
With the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I've been doing this.
Right.
I think I've shot a turkey in opening week almost every year.
Nice. Yeah.
So this year was the same. No, nothing changed. I was able to successfully kill a turkey on the first Monday of the season when it was 27 degrees out.
It was cold, wasn't it?
It was cold.
Yeah.
I was just saying to my buddy that I was hunting with, that was probably the coldest turkey hunt I've ever been on.
Really?
It snowed all day the day before on Sunday.
No, where were you? Were you down here or were you up?
No, I was up north in
Okay.
northeast Pennsylvania, Bradford County.
Yep. Because you guys got a spot up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, it was wild. Sunday, this is the reason why I would love to hunt Sundays. Sundays, we're all sitting in the cabin and just,
Beautiful weather.
No, it was
snow.
raining all
Yeah,
day, and then it turned to snow. And how about a freaking gobbler comes out into the field, and my uncle had left one of his Jake decoys out there.
Are you serious?
It went over there and beat that thing up right in front of us all. We're looking at the cabin like, we'd be out hunting right now.
Right.
It was 8 o'clock in the morning
Right.
in these wild conditions, but
Right.
this thing comes strolling out in the field and just beats the crap out of this Jake decoy. And we're like, see, this is why we got to hunt Sundays.
Right. Exactly, dude. I'm a firm believer that all the deer that I want to shoot are around my spots on Sundays.
No doubt. They know.
Right. So you're up north to hunt. And so your opening morning, how was your opening day? Was it good?
It was successful, as in we were able to see. We got on some birds.
Okay.
So usually the night before, so Friday night, I'll go out and try to locate them, put them to bed,
Right.
put them to sleep, whatever you want to call it, with an owl call or whatever. But it was super windy, if you remember.
We were texting actually that evening, I think,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
So I had a feeling I wasn't going to be able to hear anything that night, or let alone them hear me to answer
Right.
any of the call. So from hunting up here for years, I have a good idea where birds are roosted, or
Right.
from past history. Like, they do the same things year after year. Like,
Right.
they use the same terrain, and I'm hunting mountains. So
Right.
I have good idea of where birds might be. I don't know if they're definitely going to be there, but
Right.
history
Right, if
seems to repeat itself.
Right. If you know a property, it's like I know back on our family farm. It's like, and this is like the idiocy that I have, right? It's like I know the 2 spots on that farm where they roost, no doubt. I see them there every year, and I know when they pitch down, when they come off the roost, they hit 1 or 2 fields, depending, right? And they work this one hollow. If they're roosted in the one spot on the, on the neighbor's side of the field, which it's our field, but if it's on that property line, if they roost on that side, they'll fly over that first field down into the hollow, then they work their way up to the next field that's over, on the next ridge over. If they actually no, I'm sorry, it's the opposite way. They'll fly into that first field. If they roost across that field in that hollow, they'll pitch down, and then they'll work their way up the hollow and into the next field on top of the next ridge or whatever.
Right.
So that's the 2 places that you really want to hunt turkeys on that property. And my friend Tate hunts down on that property just about every year, and every year he gets into turkeys, and usually kills one the opening morning, because it's like they'll work like that, like clockwork.
Yep.
So
They usually, it doesn't even have to be a bird that was there for 4 years,
Right.
and it's doing the same thing over and over. It's just the natural movement of a turkey. Why are they there? The habitat they're using, the trees they're roosting in.
right,
And-
where do they feel safe?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just the habitat basically when it comes down to, and the food source, whatever they're eating. So, the past few years in a row, I've noticed that the turkeys have been roosting in this one area or another area. I went to the one area that I really love hunting and didn't get anything to gobble, even though I know there was birds down there. It's just a matter of them didn't.
Right.
I was up too high and they were down too low. So
Right.
we didn't hear them.
Right.
So we just went with plan B, and I was like, I was getting into turkeys last year a lot. They got to be down here. We get down there, and I'm on public land now, and So we're waiting in this bottom of this field, just waiting for the birds to start chirping and everything to start waking up and waiting for the turkeys to start gobbling. So I'm blowing the out call, and it's not quite windy yet. And I hear some twigs snapping. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, is there a deer or a bear walking up this road? And here comes a guy walking in on us. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, but luckily we were there. We had parked our vehicle down there to like kind of like let someone know that, hey, we're up in here.
Right.
To either A, deter them, or B, let's have a conversation. If we do run into each other, where you going?
Right.
Because we're on public land.
Right.
That guy did not want anything to do with me.
No.
He walked up and then totally like took a hard right and wanted to avoid me. And I'm like, so I purposely went over and got his attention and was like, hey buddy, like, you know, we're both hunting the same area, obviously. Where are you going? Did you roost a turkey last night? Like, I'll stay out of your hair.
Right.
And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, are you staying down this end, or are you going to the left, to the right, straight, back to the car? I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
He goes, I'm just going up that way. I'm like, are you planning on staying down there? Because I don't want to mess you up.
Right. I'm trying to do you a solid. Man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you're making it real hard for me to be a good guy right now.
And he's like, yeah, I'm just going up that way. And I wanted to say just like, hey, good luck, you know, but he didn't even give me a chance. He just walked away. I'm like, man, that was so weird. So I was with my buddy Tony, and I was like, dude, that guy was, he was kind of like a J.O. I'm like, yeah, he was.
Right.
So long story short, we end up not hearing any turkeys right off the roost. And then the way the wind was blowing, I was like, hey, if we get around this point, it should be pretty quiet back there. And they roost right off this point here. So let's get down there and let's just set up, like, and just see what happens. So we get set up, and I put the decoys out. And it's kind of like what happens is it's like this field comes to a point, it turns into like a logging trail, and then it kind of opens up into a mini field in the woods, and then back down to a deer trail.
Right.
So we were set up in this mini field as a basic setup with no idea of what's happening, no turkey around that we know of. So we set up, and I'm like, man, I kind of like feel way open. So I got up and start getting like some stuff to brush us in, and I hear, I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, they're roosted right behind us, like a hen. I'm like, it just saw us. I'm like, what the heck? So I just sit back down, forgot about brushing us in. And the way we were facing, it was uphill. So behind me was this tree. So now, since I've hid myself behind the tree, this turkey can't see me anymore. And I didn't call or anything for a good like 25 minutes just to make like, hey, forget about what you just seen.
Right.
And there's 2 decoys down there that didn't run away.
Right.
So they might feel safe again.
Right.
Was going through my mind.
Right.
End up calling and I had told my buddy Tony, I said, look, they probably can't hear us. It's very windy out. We're in a pretty good spot here where it's not as windy. So if one just happens to cruise the side of this hill or hears us, they might not gobble at all today.
Right.
But they might come in silence or just be still and wait. So I don't know, we're probably sitting there 45 minutes, and we hear, and I'm like, is that a hen? That was a hen. That must have been that hen. She must have flew down,
right,
or whatever, and is just kind of looking for us now. And I had thought it was coming from my right, direct right, and that's the way I'm looking. So the tree that we're sitting behind is like a double base, double split tree. So right. I'm in front of one, he's in front of the other. So I'm like looking behind to my right, and I was like, Tone, I hear them. I hear something coming. I hear it coming. Thinking it's over to my right, but they're coming directly from behind me, and I don't know this. So, but because I'm looking through this split, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, Tony, there's 4 gobblers right behind us. There are 4 jakes.
Okay.
And I said, Tony, are you shooting a jake? Because I won't shoot a jake. That's
right.
just my choice.
Yep.
I don't care what anybody else does.
Yep.
Tony's like, hell yeah, man, I'm shooting a jake. This will be great. I'm like, all right, good. There's 4 of them right behind us. I'm like, they all have beards. I'm like, so don't worry about. I identified everyone.
Right. You've already assessed that. Yeah.
I said, so just pick one and shoot. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And I'm looking, and then I realized that they're not going to swing around us for him to get a shot. So I said, Tony, you have to roll. I mean, I'm telling you, when they were right behind me, they were probably, if I stuck my gun barrel out, I could have touched them. They were
Jeez.
super close, probably 3 or 4 yards away.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm like, Tony, you have to like roll over, get up on your knees, pick one out and shoot. They all have beards. Just get one and shoot. They're all legal. You know, there's no hen with them. It's just
Right.
4 jakes. Now, Tony is a 320-pound guy.
Nice.
Maybe not 320, but 300-pound guy.
Right. Yeah, it's real easy for him to roll over.
So he's not a Navy SEAL, that's for sure.
Right. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
He actually phrased it as he was in the Navy Walruses.
In the Navy Walruses?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So just picture this guy rolling over,
That's
getting
amazing.
up on his knees, getting his gun up, and then trying to get a shot off of these birds that now have definitely seen you.
Right.
So, but I knew he could do it, even if it took him slower than normal,
Right.
because they were so close.
Right.
So he ends up to getting it, and it took 15 yards at one of these birds, and he missed 3
Are you
times.
serious?
But
Nice.
I was just cracking up because it was just a funny
Right.
experience and just funny watching him. And usually I film a lot of my hunts.
Right.
And this year I was just like, I really don't care. I'm not filming. And
Dude, you should have had that on film.
that would have been a
Solid
YouTube
gold. Yeah,
sensation right there.
100%.
That would have been a million hits
Right.
within a few days.
Right. That's awesome.
Because it's just the fact of him rolling over.
That's pretty good, man.
Anyway, he ended up missing, and it was a windy day.
Right. And here in PA, we're done by noon.
Yeah.
The first 2 weeks, right?
We packed it in at like 10:30 because we both were staying until Wednesday. I'm like, we still got 3 more solid days of hunting.
Yeah.
This day is kind of a wash. I'm not trying to go out there and look for a bird in this wind. They're never going to hear us.
Right.
You got to get 100% lucky.
Yep. And just for everyone out there listening that doesn't know, Pennsylvania's a state where the first 2 weeks, pretty sure it's the first 2 weeks. Yeah.
I think after
It's-
this weekend it opens.
Yeah.
I think the 13th might open for all day.
Yeah. So you have to be done. You can only hunt gobblers till noon for like the first 2 weeks. And then that, like you said, I think it's that, I guess it'd be the second, the third Monday. It'd be the third Monday of the season, I guess.
Yeah.
Is when it opens up for full day is what I think it is. I don't think it opens up on the Saturday.
I
the
think
full
it's
day.
that first Monday or that third.
Third Monday. Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. So that's the opening day. So what about, so you killed a nice gobbler. So how did that all go down?
So Sunday night I went out locating because obviously the wind and the rain had everything had stopped. It got dead quiet out. I'm like, I'm going to hear some gobblers. And I'm feeling they're going to want to breed now.
Right.
Because it was windy on Saturday and it rained all day Sunday.
Right.
They're looking for love
Yep.
on Monday
Yep.
for sure. Sunday night and Monday. So I finally actually turned into a shed hunt for me because I wasn't hearing anything. And I just started walking through some pines and
Right.
looking for antlers. And
Because you are a shed hunting fool.
I'm not as into it as most people, but I do get into it when I put my mind to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up hearing a gobbler, and I was using like my I don't have an alcohol, I just use my hands.
Right.
And I got one that gobble, and I'm like, oh, I think I hear two. And then, so I was able to like pinpoint them I kept getting the gobble, so I just opened up my map on Onyx,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a really good idea of pinpointing this bird on the map. So that whole night, I just was like studying the map, like getting a game plan where I can end up hunting this bird, like access, how am I going to get close to him? And I knew I had to get in there super early because the way this mountain lies, it's super steep.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that these birds from previous years roost almost not all the way up, but like halfway up this mountain. And if I showed you on the map how steep it is, you'd be like, holy crap, dude, it's
Yeah, I mean, up where you're at, I mean, it's mountains.
Yeah,
it's not a lot of ridges and stuff. It's mountains.
So I was
Not for a Western guy, but for East Coast, it's a mountain.
yeah, the top of this mountain's like
Yeah.
2,200 feet or something.
Yeah.
Which is not like you said to a Western. It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's a hill.
That's a bluff.
Yeah.
It's like that's like my my wood pile.
Yeah. So, but I knew that I had to get in there super early to get under these birds without them seeing me because the way the land lies, it's it's really open hardwoods and turns into some like hemlocks and stuff. And I knew they'd be roosted up in like these hemlocks, which is like the third hard line on the map.
Right.
Which, if you want to call it a ridge on the map, you can. But when you look at it on the mountain, like in real life, you're like, wow, there's like nothing here. It's just straight up and down.
Right.
It's a little hump. So I was able to get up there super early, and these birds were just gobbling back and forth. It ended up being at least 4 different gobblers were up there, and probably that group of jakes, because I heard them trying to gobble. So I was able to get myself in between all these birds in the dark within 100 yards.
Nice.
Of the 2 that I had pinpointed on the map. And when I got up there, another one gobbled, and he was in my lap. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I can't move anywhere. So I just picked like the biggest tree and sat down, and he's literally gobbling probably 40 yards away from me in a tree.
Nice.
And I'm pretty sure, I never saw him in the tree, but I could hear him spitting.
Right.
I didn't ever really hear him drumming, but I hear that
right
every once in a while. I'm like,
right.
I think he's fanned out in the tree right now. Just gobbling.
Right.
And I was like, this is going to happen the minute he flies down, because if he flies down where I think he is, like normally a turkey they'll roost on the side of these hills. They'll go up high, fly straight into the tree, and then they'll fly straight out of the tree into the side of the mountain.
Yep.
It's like almost like jumping out of the tree, so it's not as far. I'm like, if he does what I think he's going to do, I mean, he's going to jump right in my lap. And probably like 5:56, he eventually flew down or jumped out of the tree, and he was 25 yards away.
Wow.
I never called.
Are you
once.
serious?
Never called.
Wow.
And that's how close I was, by just kind of luck, because I was setting up on the other 2 birds, and then this one started going off out of nowhere.
Right, but I mean, still, you were in the mix because you knew where they were going to be in general, right?
Right.
You know, so I mean, you may not have known exactly where that bird was, but the fact that you had a really good idea.
Well, I saw the other 2 fly down first.
Oh, okay, they actually flew down first.
The other 2 that I was set up on, or was the original game plan was.
Right.
I think the one I killed was the boss of all these birds, because those 2 were like, I feel like were subordinate and roosted 100 or 80 yards off of him. He roosted here because then later I found out there was a lot of hens around me too.
Oh, okay.
So he was gobbling, getting his hens together, strutting in the tree.
Boss bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he ended up flying down 25 yards away, and in Pennsylvania, you have to identify the beard.
Yep.
Before you shoot. So as he was flying, I'm like, I saw his beard flopping. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I know he has a beard, but I definitely want to make sure.
Right.
So when he flew down, I'm like, all right, I can kill you right now. But I'm like, I can't see his beard.
Right.
I'm like, where does it? I'm like, I swear I saw it when he flew. And then he walked up and he did a little, like a turn, and I saw it like swing.
Right.
I'm like, all right, you're done.
You're
and
done.
Then, so I was waiting for him just to like clear this one little branch, and he just stuck his head out, and I
smoked him.
Boom. And it's like,
Nice.
literally, I said, never called. I think that's the first turkey I ever shot, never calling.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, do you what kind of call do you use?
I use a mouth call.
Oh, do you?
Like 90% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I really like the Woodhaven.
Okay.
The mouth calls.
I tried mouth calling for the first time last year with mixed results. You know, like
it's not easy.
No, it's not. It takes practice. Like I spent a lot of windshield time.
Yeah.
You know, calling while I was in my truck. You know, trying to.
So when I was a kid, me and my buddy, we had bought turkey calls, and just literally would call each other on the phone. How does this sound? And start calling to each other. Like, dude, it's a little like high pitch. Like, you need to tone that down a little, or like.
Right.
And that's what we literally do like every day before turkey season. And we're probably 13 years old.
Nice.
And I called my first turkey in when I was 14.
Nice.
With a mouth call.
That's awesome.
And we were, you know, and I really think that's why I got good at it, because all we did was literally be on the phone. We would never talk, just turkey call.
Right now, it's probably almost second nature when you pop it in. Right. It's probably
I don't even need to really practice, just to go in and
it just happens.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, do you use decoys a fair amount or not really?
It depends on the situation. Normally, no, because I like to run and gun.
Okay.
I don't have much patience when it comes to turkeys. If I know one's not playing ball with me, I'll get up and move on and get one. Go on the one that's
talking.
that's willing.
Right.
If one's gobbling every 2, 3 every time, I'm like, all right, he has hens with him, or he just isn't going to commit.
Right.
So I'll go find a bird that's hot
Right.
and try to call him in. So moving around, like I get so nervous going 20, 30 yards out in front of me, trying to stick a decoy out and then moving back. To me, that's too much movement.
Right.
And you're moving closer to the turkey and then moving back. I don't.
Right.
And I had noticed that, like, when I'm in the hardwoods or in the thicker areas, like, when you're turkey hunting like that, no decoy is beneficial. But sometimes, you go, man, I wish I had the decoy because he hung up 40 yards
Right.
or 50 yards. And
Right.
he didn't see the hen, so he stopped and isn't coming.
Right.
But a lot of times, like when you're calling and they're coming in, they're coming, and you lay eyes, but he's 70 yards out, 60 yards out, and he's coming. If you call when like he can't see you, I don't think he truly can pinpoint you yet.
Right.
But when he's looking and you call, he knows exactly where you're at the minute you make that noise.
Right.
And then he'll look. All right, there's no hen there. He knows something's up if it's a smart bird.
Smart bird. Right.
And usually they are.
Right. Nice.
Especially when you're hunting longbeards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the decoy is a situational thing. I love using it in fields because if one's not talking and they see it, they
Can
can come
entice
in.
them to
But
come in. Yeah.
it's tough for them to see that in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Nice.
but yeah.
Nice, man. So you had a good turkey season. It's not over for you yet. You got another turkey tag
I
to
have a
fill,
second
right?
tag. I'm going to head up actually this weekend.
Nice.
And it's probably my last chance in PA
Yeah.
to try to kill a bird. I got a lot of stuff going on. Actually heading to New York the following weekend. I don't know if you know George Romanchuk.
Name sounds familiar for some reason.
He's with Flatline Whitetail.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Actually heading up to his cabin in New York. Got a New York tag for
Nice.
turkey, and him and I are going to go turkey hunting together up there. But
Nice.
so I chose to give up a PA weekend to go there. So it's
Well, you got
It's-
one. You got
yeah.
one in the books already. You
Yeah.
filled one tag already, so it's always cool to go hunt somewhere new and check something else out. You know what I mean?
it's going to be fun regardless. Like him and I, we've known each other since we were kids, and we have like so much fun together. It's
Nice.
It's kind of stupid.
Nice. Well, speaking of fun, man. So let's talk a little bit about your deer season this past year. So, so this deer season, like for everyone out there listening, you're the one who turned me on to the swamp that I was hunting this
Yeah.
year. It was through the conservancy group that we're both members of.
Right.
And that was where I got on that, good deer. And so there was a lot of texting back and forth with you and I of like, hunting these different properties and stuff like that. Kind of coaching each other on like, hey, I saw this today. I need deer moving for you today. And it was, I'll tell you what, man, it's nice. I don't really have any, many buddies on the eastern side of PA other than you and my buddy Wilson, that get out and do a lot of hunting or whatever,
Yeah.
So it's nice to
We're
have.
diehards like we are.
Yeah, they're just ate up with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and so it's, I don't. You two are the two guys that I know that's like I can count on. Like I can shoot a text to him, like, hey man, you've been out this week, and it's like one of you is going to be out. Like Wilson goes out like almost every day. It seems like he hunts just about every morning and every evening. Just because his job and like the spots he hunts are really close between like where he lives and where he works, so he's able to get out a lot. But so I was super stoked this year. Well, let me back up for a second. Like every day when one of us would go out, like you would text me like, "You going out today?" Be like, "Yeah," or I'd be like, "I'm in the timber now," and you're like, "Call me whenever you kill that pig." He's like, "I want to help drag him out." And so we would go back and forth like that the entire time. But you were the one who were dragging pigs out, fortunately.
Yeah.
So I did not. So was that on one of the? It was on one of the conservancy properties.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So walk me through that hunt.
So I knew this deer was there, not from trail camera,
Yep.
just from a visual sighting in the end of October. So
Yep.
I told myself that's the only deer I'm going to shoot in this property unless something bigger comes out.
Yep.
So I stuck to my guns, and that's hard to do.
Yep.
So I see a nice buck, I get super excited, and
Yeah.
I get an itchy trigger finger, and I just want to send an arrow through their lungs.
Yep.
But that's hard to control.
Yeah.
But I did it before, and I'm like, I have to do this again, like,
Right.
because the one year I shot a buck, and you never dissatisfied with killing an animal,
Right.
but something told me that I wasn't. I'm like, I want to go out and kill another deer. In Pennsylvania, you only can kill one buck.
Right.
And when I felt that I wanted to go kill another buck the next day,
Right.
I was like, it didn't sit well with
Right.
me. And I'm like, that's why I'm going to pay more respect to what I do
Right.
and only go after the one
The
I
one that you
choose.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got on this deer, and I knew he was in the area. And
Now, was this property hot early in the year?
this property gets good around mid-October.
Mid-October.
Yeah.
Okay.
So early in the season, we because a buddy and I hunted together.
Yep.
He actually killed a buck mid-October. But we knew this buck was there from day one. As soon as trail cameras start getting put out,
Okay.
we're like, all right, this buck's here. He lives here. That was his target buck, and we ended up harvesting him. I actually got that buck on film, which was pretty cool.
I remember you sending me that. Yeah.
So he ended up killing that deer. So that now that this kind of leaves his property to me, unless he wants to go shoot a doe.
Right.
But he knew I wanted to go kill a buck, so he kind of like, go ahead, man, just get out there.
Right.
I'll go with you. I'll sit with you, but I won't shoot until you shoot.
Right. Right. Right.
So I was able to hunt when I wanted. I picked like good weather days and stuff like that. So this deer, I go away every year up to my cabin and I hunt the first week in November. Typically, we kind of play the moon a little bit.
Okay.
Long story short, was up there all week. It wasn't successful at all.
And you have a hammer deer up there that you're after too.
I was.
Well, I don't know. This year, did you know he was still around?
I do know he
Well, I
made
know
it
you.
through.
I know you knew he made it through this year, but did you know he was there last year?
So there's two different bucks
Okay.
that I knew of up there. Last year, I had laid eyes on that buck the year before. Knew he survived. Set up everything. Set up shop for this deer.
Right.
Never got any intel from him at all. But in the meantime, found a new buck. I'm like, whoa, this.
He was a stud.
Yeah, and finding him wasn't from trail camera, of course, because I never checked them.
Yep.
I just hunted it first and then pulled all the cards on the way out. But the very first sit, I see this buck. I'm like, holy moly, this thing's really nice.
Yeah, it's a good deer.
That's the one I'm shooting. And then I pull my cards. I'm like, okay, he lives here.
Right.
Yeah, but never got another opportunity at him that through the week, and our archery season ended upstate. So down here, we can hunt extra time.
Right. Just for folks out there listening, like, so Pennsylvania, the archery season statewide will come in, let's just call it October 1. It's the first Saturday of October or the last Saturday of September, depending on where the date falls. And then, in PA statewide, well, so let me back up for a second. So that's the statewide opener. There's certain WMUs within the state, which, Tom and I both live in a select few of those WMUs, which are on the eastern part of the state, and which some of them are out around Pittsburgh. It opens up mid-September, called September 15th.
Basically the suburbs of the major cities.
Yeah. And then it'll run to statewide, runs to the Saturday before, I'm sorry. You have a week in between archery season ending and rifle season. No, a week or 2 weeks.
It stays open.
Well, no, here it does, but like statewide, there's a week gap. Like if you go
There's
back.
2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks, okay.
Because
Yeah.
they got bear season in between.
Oh, that's right. Yep, you're right. So there's a 2 week gap between archery season ending and rifle season coming in the first Monday after Thanksgiving. Again, around the major cities, the suburbs around the major cities, there is no gap. You can hunt up to and through the archery or the rifle season.
Basically never closes.
Yeah. You can hunt it from basically September 15th all the way through
January 26th.
January 26th, January 29th. To
There's
whatever
a gap in there where it does close, but it might be closed for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
But the deer really don't get a break. But
Right. So the moral of the story is that
I was
hunting
able to
statewide closed. You were still able to hunt down here.
So I took advantage of that situation. I was able to hunt now, which I think is some of the better hunting during the rut because PA closed. I mean,
It's funny you say that.
the
Yeah.
11th.
Yeah, it
10th.
always closes around like somewhere between anywhere between like the 10th and like the 12th usually, just depending on how the dates fall. It feels
I have
like.
two favorite times a year to hunt for whitetail, mature whitetails. The very end of October. I don't really like hunting them during the actual so-called rut, the first week in November or second week in November. But then you get from the 12th through the 20th.
Yep.
Then the big bucks are back on their feet.
It's funny you say that because we had John and I had Don Higgins on, And his absolute favorite time to try to kill a big deer is right around Thanksgiving is his favorite time. Because and I mean, if you think about it, the math works out, right? Because your does first cycle in, I know the one spot that I hunt in Ohio, like the does will cycle in like like around the 6th is like when they're coming in. Like third, things will start to get sporty, and then it's usually like the 6th, 7th, and 8th is are like the really hot days. It seems like in that particular spot, and then you have lockdown and so on and so forth that occurs, right? And then the does that came in that didn't get bred, they'll come back in 30 days later, right? So if you do the math, it's like, well, when do they start to heat up? The early does will start to heat up in mid to late November, right? And the does that came in quote unquote on time or late will come in at the end of November, very beginning of December, right? And so his favorite time is that Thanksgiving time frame, because he's like, there's more competition for fewer does at that point. So now, and does are now spread out as far as like does that haven't been bred aren't concentrated, right? So you don't have like a doe family here. It's like they may have all been bred. So now he's got to go to doe family over here and check this bedding area, because there aren't hot does in every kind of spot necessarily.
Yep.
And so they have to move a lot more. And that's his favorite time to catch a big smart buck be dumb.
Yep. That I agree, because I seen the biggest bucks I've ever seen in Pennsylvania in early October, right around Halloween. And for the past 3 years in a row, I've seen, which everyone would call a shooter in PA, 130 plus 3 years in a row, in between that October time frame.
Yep.
And then, you can't hunt upstate after that.
Yeah.
So I come home, and the previous year I knew of trail camera. I'm like, man, there was a lot of big buck on my trail cam.
Right.
After like this second week, but I had already been tagged out last year. So this year I wasn't tagged out, and I'm like, I was super excited to get in there. I knew this one buck was in there, and I'm like, and there could potentially be absolute giant comes through there one day.
A cruiser, yeah.
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 So that day I got set up. I after work, got out of work, went in, got in the saddle, climbed up the tree, and I think I set everything up that day. So this is the very first sit in this tree, and I think it might have been my actual maybe like 5th time ever using the saddle.
Right.
So I'm not exactly seasoned out of this thing yet.
Right.
So I get all set up, and I wasn't there more than 5 minutes, and I see 2 button bucks actually feeding, and I'm like, man, all right, cool. I've seen deer already. This is good. Because I didn't get in there super early like I'd like to.
Right.
I had to kind of sneak in. And which was nice about the saddle. I was able to set up super quiet, and super fast. Yeah. And within maybe a half hour after that, I see my first buck come through. I think it was like a little 4-pointer or a spike. Mm-hmm. And then another buck comes through.
Oh, so you knew at that point, you're in a good spot.
Here comes, and he's like a little bit bigger.
Yep.
So now there's 2 button bucks and the 4-pointer and a 6-pointer, 25 yards in front of me at the tree I picked, just hanging out. And now the 2 start sparring, and I'm like, this is pretty cool.
Right.
I'm like, I got 2 bucks semi going at it in front of me, making a little noise, and here comes another buck. Right. And this one's a small 8-pointer. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, it's not even prime time yet. There's 3 bucks in front of me and 2 button bucks. Not a doe in sight.
So what was the I guess the magic of that spot? Like, what was it in between, like 2 bedding areas?
It's definitely in between 2 bedding areas, for sure. And there's a swamp there too, as well. So
were they following like a soft edge, like around the swamp?
So this is a natural as a funnel as you can get. So there's a creek. Mm-hmm. So I'll put you in how I see it. I'm sitting in my saddle. To my left, there's a creek, and that's kind of open from where I'm sitting. It's pretty open. I can see all the way to the creek, and that's maybe 100 yards.
Okay.
To my right below me, it's a very like thick channel. Maybe some like sticker bushes, and it's just it's thick cover there, and then it turns into a swamp, and then like oak swamp. Like there's oak trees, and there's a little knoll in there where the acorns are falling in there.
Right.
So like they feed in there and they're bedding in this swamp.
Okay.
And then up on top of the hill, there's a development. So there's houses up there. So
Right.
there's not much place for these deer to go besides up and down this channel in between. Basically, they're not going to walk through the water
Right.
too much. They do, but they're,
Right. Right.
they're going to avoid it when they can. And where I had set up this stand, I had noticed where they come out of the bedding, they cross right through here,
Okay.
out of the swamp into the open area and kind of feed. And down, maybe 300 yards in front of me is this big overgrown field.
Mm-hmm.
And they bed in there. Because, that stuff is over my head.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you showing me the video of the recovery or whatever. That shit was tall.
Yeah, that stuff was over your head. So the does bed in there, the does bed in the swamp, and behind me, it's pretty thick. Way behind me, like maybe another 300 yards, is another really thick bedding area. And mind you, we're in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Yeah,
there's more deer around than in your normal typical hunting areas.
Right.
So, this day that I shot this deer was crazy. I can't believe I didn't see a doe. Not one doe.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So
because usually these spots are polluted with does.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think they just got all ran out of there by.
Well, the bucks, I'm sure, have been chasing them for a while.
Yeah, they're just chasing around. They're just not there, but they're still lurking for them there.
Yep.
So these 4 or 3 deer that are there now, the 3 buck and the 2 bucks, kind of feed away from me and head towards the creek. And now I just know that they're over there doing something, but I can't see them anymore. So I'm like grunting a little bit, not much. I think I did like 3 grunts and just stopped. Excuse me. So it's getting probably about like a half hour before, maybe 45 minutes before dark. And I see this big body moving out of the swamp. I'm like, that's a buck. I know it's a buck without seeing its antlers, putting binos on them, anything. I'm like, that's a buck, and that's a mature deer just from body size of looking at him. He steps out. I'm like, oh my God, I think that's the buck I want. That's the buck I saw early in October. So I put my binos on. I'm like, that's him. I'm like, oh my God, he's like 80 yards away. So I sent out a couple grunts, and then I snort wheezed at him because I knew he's probably the dominant buck in this area. I haven't seen a bigger one.
Yep.
And he pays no attention to any of that. But later, thinking about it, he had to have heard me do that.
Right.
Because he came, after he went and messed with the 3 bucks that were over there, he kind of ran them off because I saw the one run, and that was the small 8-pointer. And I'm like, oh, there's the 8-pointer. Next thing you know, I'm looking up, and I see a deer, and I had thought it was the small 8-pointer just working his way back towards me, and I put the binos on. I'm like, oh my God, it's him. And he's literally coming on a rope straight to my tree. And I don't know where I lost him in that mix, but I did. And I'm like, he's 40 yards away coming directly at me. So I'm like, oh my God, get the bow, and I'm ready. And now it's at the point where it's the deer, the tree, and me. So I'm in between. I'm well hidden. This deer has no idea, but he comes in, I'm telling you, directly downwind. And he gets about 30 yards out and starts scent checking. I'm like, man, I'm going to get busted. But I give 100% total credit to the Limit Shield and Ozonic as a team there.
Right.
Because there's no way, if I didn't have that stuff, he's busting me.
Yeah, I had a couple experiences this year where it bought me some yards. We'll put it now. It wasn't a shooter, but I had deer on a few different occasions that were downwind of me that didn't bust me until way late, and they should have busted me way before they did. You know what I mean? Like, and when I say busted me, they didn't blow out of there. They just kind of caught a whiff of something and like looked around and then just moved away. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they took off running or whatever, but they just kind of stopped and were like, whoa, something's up. But at that point, it's like, like they were 10 yards. The one was at 5 yards. You know what I mean? It was like
killable.
It's like the 5-yard one. It was like, even if it wasn't downwind of me, a wind shift, you know what I mean, would have done the same thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. So I give that credit to them, and the fact that those deer that were there earlier in the night were hanging there for a good hour.
Yeah.
They probably stink like rutting buck.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
so like
Sometimes I stink like running buck.
yeah, when I get real into it,
Yeah.
So he makes his way in, and being the first time hunting out of a saddle, not first time, but
First time trying to make a kill out of it.
first opportunity to try to shoot a deer out of it, and now you have a strong side and a weak side in your saddle.
Yep.
Well, this deer, I'm like, where's he coming? I'm like, I hope he comes over right over here. It's going to be a 15-yard chip shot on the strong side. I won't have to make any movement, and that looks the way he looks like he's coming. And of course, he goes to my right, which would be my weak side
shot. Yep.
And I'm like, he's going to my right. You got to be kidding me. So I picked my bow up over the bridge.
Yep.
And now I literally look like a pretzel in the tree. Like I'm all twisted up. But I practiced this shot.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if this happens in real life? Like, because it will.
Eventually, yeah, sure.
And I'm like, I literally was at my cabin. I climbed the tree on a Sunday and just practiced that shot at 30 yards.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 10, 12 times. I'm like, all right, I can do it. I can pull my bow back. I feel confident that I can make that shot.
Yep.
So he comes through. He's 25 yards away, and I have like a pie plate area to shoot through that was the only lane I had because it was the first time I no trimming lanes or anything.
Right.
I just broke a couple of branches around me that I could get more of a clear shot. So I didn't really want to alert that I was there, but I was going to have to make this shot through
to get him to stop.
To get him to stop. And I never had to do that because he stopped there on his own.
Oh, that's awesome.
By himself. I'm like, holy crap. This deer's
just giving
all
it up.
I could see is his vitals. Like
right.
If I miss, I'm hitting the twig and I'm not getting them. So if I put it through this pie plate at 25 yards,
he's going down.
He's toast.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I did.
Nice.
I was able to draw back on him and put it right through there. And I wasn't sure of the shot. I knew I hit him a tad high. And I'm like, man, I think I hit him high. I saw the arrow hanging out on the other side. I'm like, that angle, though, I should be coming down straight through both lungs. I was very nervous about the shot.
Right.
I gave it about a half hour. I made a couple phone calls. I'm like, oh, my God, I just hit a buck.
Right.
Your adrenaline's pumping. You're shaking like crazy. You don't even remember what happened. Like
no,
you have to
100%.
go through your timeline on your phone.
Yep.
So I get down, I check for blood, and there's blood immediately. I'm like, and that like kind of calmed me down.
Right.
I'm like, but I didn't see this deer fall over. And a rule that I have for myself is if I don't watch it fall over, I'm giving it at least 2 hours.
Right.
If I see it in sight, yeah, okay, poof, perfect. I'm going right after you.
Right.
But if I don't watch it, 2 hours minimum.
Yep.
I don't want to. I lost deer before, and I don't ever want to do that again.
Right. That and they're not going to be any less dead later.
Exactly.
It's just going to be more dead. So.
Yeah, I never had a dead deer run away from me.
So. Right. Exactly.
So that's what we did. I had my dad come get me, pick me up out of the woods because he actually ran towards my exit route, and I was like, I'm not walking that way, so I had to escape out a different way. I had to get my dad pick me up, which is kind of weird in a suburban area. I'm like sneaking through. I'm like,
right.
Hey, Dad, I'm on the corner of here and here. You got to come pick me up. I'll pop out of the woods.
Right.
So I popped out. He picked me up, and I told him everything. So we went back 2 hours later, and
there he was.
He was toast, 80 yards away. I
That's
can't
awesome,
believe
man.
he just fell out of sight. Like,
right.
I mean, he was stiff as a board too. So he died immediately.
Right. Yeah.
Which was great. So I was pumped. It's not my biggest buck to date, but it was my second biggest buck.
Right.
At the time, I thought it was my biggest buck.
Right. And the fact that you kind of picked him out.
Yeah.
It was like,
it was cool.
This is the one I want to go after, and he gave you an opportunity, which is killer. I have a question though. So, do you think so? If you were setting a tree stand up in that spot, how would you have set it up?
In that same tree?
Yeah. So the question really, I'm leading you to ask you.
I had a tree stand in that spot.
Would you have been on the front side of that tree or the back side where you were in your saddle?
I probably would have faced it the same way that I had it.
So you would have been on the front side.
I would have been like the way I was sitting in the saddle. It would have been facing. My back would have been to the tree the way I would have set the tree stand up.
Yeah.
So I would have had to look behind me from where that deer had shot. Had shot.
So you would have been set up facing the creek, that general direction, so you could keep the deer.
The creek would have been to my right at this point instead of my left.
Right.
And the swamp would have been
right
to my left.
Yeah.
Compared.
So
it
would have been a much tougher. It would have been a much harder shot. Right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Or No, actually, it wouldn't have, because he would have came out on my left side.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Because
As long as you put it on the back side of the tree.
back side of the tree.
Yeah,
Yep.
because what a lot of folks will make is they'll hang it on the front side of that tree.
But I didn't know exactly. These deer kind of move everywhere through there, so not like I could have hung it on any side of the tree and been in a good spot. But I would have hung it on the back side, anticipating that they would have coming through here as more cover. And I like looking into that swamp because that's where a lot of these deer are coming funneling down this way.
Right.
And yeah,
that's interesting because I think, sometimes people hang it on the front side of the tree where they think that you're going to come from, which is a challenge because then you're kind of setting yourself up to be open and like in line of sight, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how much breakup you have and stuff like that. The interesting thing about hunting out of a saddle though is that you're able to kind of position yourself looking the direction you think deer are going to come from. You know what I mean?
Whereas you're hidden already.
Whereas in a tree stand, it's like you almost want to position yourself on the opposite side of the tree from where you think the deer are going to come from, so you can use the tree like you would in a saddle.
Exactly.
But you're also setting yourself up to a slight disadvantage that you're not able to kind of see that direction, right? It's like,
right.
I mean, you can stand, of course, and face backwards. Like that's always an option, right? You can do that. But for those who are sitting, that's kind of challenge. You're constantly looking back over your shoulder.
Yeah.
The whole sit, which is a pain in the ass.
I'll tell you what. After using the saddle for pretty much half the season last year,
I was going to ask you, what do you think?
And a lot of the late season, which is mainly what I hunt out of the late season.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Like I find it to be comfortable now.
Mm-hmm.
And the times that I did sit in a tree stand and not use my saddle, I almost felt like, man, I really want to get back in the saddle. Like,
right.
And hunt out because it was different. It's a cool feeling.
It's quiet.
Yeah, it's quiet. And
light.
And it's the comfortable. I found it to be comfortable. Like I'd much rather hunt out of my saddle now than an actual tree stand.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Look, I think there's an application for all of them. I'm not saying there's not a place for a tree stand because I mean I hunt out of a saddle majority of the time, and there were hunts in Ohio that I was using a tree stand, while I was in Ohio because I was presetting some, like when I got there, I preset one stand in particular, just because I knew I was going to hunt that spot probably multiple times.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, it was up a nasty climb and stuff like that. And so I didn't want to have to lug something in there every time necessarily. So I was looking to try to set something up and then be able to kind of get into it. But I wore my saddle as my harness every day. So I was basically using the platform of it and saddle hunting just with a larger platform because I liked the freedom and the mobility that I had in the tree to be able to make any shot wearing a saddle. You know what I mean? So that to me is like, I don't know, at least for me, that's kind of the game changer.
I haven't used a platform yet the saddle hunting.
Okay. Were you using ring of steps?
I tried the ring of steps. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had a couple screw-in pegs.
Okay.
And I would set them up strategically. And then I'd had one climbing stick, which was my main platform.
Right.
And I just kind of sat there with both feet on that climbing stick on the two.
Yeah.
And then I would be able to adjust myself side to side off the screw-in steps on each side of the tree. And then, set, to adjust to be more comfortable one way, sit like this for a couple hours or an hour, and then sit like that for an hour.
Right. Right.
That's how I found it to be most comfortable for me because I didn't get the platform yet.
Right.
The platform, I think, will be the game changer and the nail in the coffin for me with saddle hunting. And then once I do that, I'm going to be like, this is it. This is it. This is the only way I'm going to do it now.
Yeah.
But, with saddle hunting, it brings up a point like what you're talking about, like tree stands and stuff. If you're a private land hunter and not so much the hardcore DIY, do it yourself, let's go public land. Like,
hang and hunt.
Yeah, the cool, like, kind of Instagram and social media thing to do right now.
Right.
Everything's public land based, which is awesome. I love it.
Hey, I love it too because it creates a bunch of awareness around it.
Exactly.
So it's like, I'll take the good with the bad.
I love it. But it's the Instagram social media thing right now, and which I'm not knocking that, but it kind of am.
Right. It's like when someone says to you, "Hey Tom, no disrespect." The next thing you can expect out of their mouth is like something that's going to be disrespectful.
Yes, exactly. But like if you're a private land hunter, or and you use tree stands, the saddle really isn't going to be for you because you can set your tree stand up, and it can stay there all year long. And normally you're hunting the same spots and they're successful for you. And if you're doing a minor adjustment, you're there to do it.
Make the adjustment in
Make
advance.
the adjustment.
Yeah.
And you can drive your ATV or wherever you need to do this pretty simple.
Yep.
But I hunt both. I hunt private and public.
Yep.
So when I'm on the public land, it's just so much easier for me to bring the saddle.
Yep. Exactly.
So that's where I find advantages in both sections of it, like because I hunt private and public.
Yeah. See, now me hunting our private ground, I still use the saddle.
I did too.
Yeah, just because. So I 100% agree with you. It's like if you're a dude and or if your family owns property and you got some private land to hunt that you live close to and stuff like that, it's like tree stands might just make more sense for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I don't know that with the experience that I had this year hunting out of a saddle, I don't know that I would say that it would be the best option still, just because I still think even minus carrying anything in, because then you can make the argument like I've got 15 preset or pre-hung tree stands, you know what I mean, for every possible decent spot on the property, right? I got early season spots, I got rut spots, I got pre-rut spots, I got late season spots, like whatever the case is. So I don't have to carry anything, right? That's because that's the big thing with saddle hunting. Everyone's like the weight,
Yep.
right? It's like it's super light, but if you're not carrying anything, well, the weight doesn't become like an issue, right? But I would still say, one of the issues still is just the shootability out of it, right? Which is there's not a dead spot on the tree. Like there's not a dead spot at all. Now, guys like Cody DeQuisto, and I'll use him as an example because I think he's a great deer hunter. And I know there's a lot of guys that do this, and I'm just using him as an example, but he will strategically set up to where the deer will only be able to come from this one area, and he will set his stand up to specifically take a shot sitting down off his left. And he knows that that's what's going to happen, right? And he will set up to where like there's a bunch of cover on his right or whatever, where it's like there's no chance in hell he's going to have a shot to his right-hand side, right? And so for someone who's going to set something up that strategically, then maybe a saddle doesn't work because you only have one shot. That's the only shot you're going to take, right? But I'm going to guess that most guys aren't taking the time to do that. And now I'm just going to say that most people, one, maybe don't have the time to assess the property that well, right? Or one, maybe they just don't have that much cover in that particular tree that they need to be in because they're hunting out of a tree stand, but this tree over here would be better, but the tree stand won't fit in it. So I still think there's applications, but not nearly, to your point, it's not nearly as required, maybe,
right?
Than it is on public.
Now, I like the saddle idea. If you have the 15 preset,
dude, just take your saddle because that's your harness, and then you're still hunting. You got best of both worlds.
That, and then you're sitting in your stand, and you notice all morning, oh my God, I just saw 4 bucks cruise that ridge 60 yards in front of me. Mm-hmm. And the does were up there. Nothing was in shooting range for me. You can literally get out of your stand and move up to that ridge without
and don't even have to take your stand.
Thinking about anything. Just get down because it's in your backpack or on you already.
Yep.
And move. And you're done.
Yep. And that was the reason why, that was how I kind of used it in Ohio whenever I said I did use a stand in the one location. It was really just a platform. It was because I was wearing my saddle as a harness whenever I was on that platform and was hunting out of it like it was a saddle. But if I wanted to sit, it was a climber. So if I wanted to sit, I could. And I basically had a set of sticks that were by that stand, like I say hidden. It was out of sight, kind of, right?
Yeah.
That way, if I needed to get down to make a move, I had sticks there and I had my saddle already on me, and I could literally just take off. Now I was going to have to use a stick as a platform, but that was fine. You know what I mean? It's like it allowed me to move 50, 60 yards if I needed to, and not have to worry about it.
Yep.
The other reason why I use the saddle on private at our family pieces is just because I live like you do from your property. I live 3.5 hours, 4 hours away from it, to where it's like I don't want someone hunting it when I'm not there and just climbing up into a stand and hunting. I also don't want them stolen. You know what I mean? Yep. So, they can't steal it if it's not hanging in the tree.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. I mean, for me, I don't foresee myself I won't say that I'll never use a stand again because I don't like to say never. I think there's applications. Like, look, if I know I'm going to hunt a certain spot opening morning back at the family farm or something like that, I might hang a stand and just know I can crawl up into it.
Yeah.
Because it's a 4-hour drive back. If I drive back after work, I'm getting there at like midnight. I'm back up at the ass crack of dawn to hunt. I'm tired. Probably going to make noise if I try to do a hang and hunt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like probably be better for me just to have something set. That way I can just climb into it. Yep. You know what I mean? which I'd probably use something like that in that scenario. But
Absolutely.
so what's your setup going to be for this year, man? Like, what do you, cause I'm changing mine up a little bit.
Well, I'm definitely going to get the platform
Yep.
for saddle hunting.
How you climbing?
Probably the climbing sticks again. Unless I've looked into different types of steps. I think you said you had the Wild Edge.
I got a couple Wild Edge steps that I'm using this year with a nader and a swader.
Yeah, I was checking those out like online, and I saw them at the Harrisburg show, and they look pretty cool. They look legit. They look sturdy. Everything. And I thought about actually the custom Lone Wolf gear. I think they came out with some super lightweight gear this year.
Yeah, man, they got those
sticks.
The two step sticks are the ones that I
sticks.
kind of dug on. I'm not a big fan of like the big long
No.
regular size sticks anymore. I mean, I have a set of those Lone Wolf ones, and I'll use them like if I need to. Like so I'm not gonna not use them or whatever. But I did change the Wild Edge for this year. If I were going to buy sticks, I would probably go with the Lone Wolf ones or Dan Faltz.
Yeah, I noticed his too, but I didn't actually
hold them,
see them and lay my hands on them. But like the Lone Wolf sticks, I saw them at ATA and they were sick.
Yeah,
I was like, the packability out of them is cool. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. Is like, what's going to be more convenient for me.
Yeah.
And I like the lightweight aspect of the sticks, and the Wild Edge steps. Like, they seem just as good. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't even really know what the nader and the swader is.
Yeah, so when we're done here, man, we'll go in my little archery shop and I'll show you the setup.
Yeah,
I think you would dig it.
I probably will.
Because it's super light, and just the way you're able to climb, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's nothing too crazy.
I think I've seen some videos on like Tethered Nation that they.
Yeah, Greg has put out a bunch of videos with a bunch of cool stuff, climbing mechanisms and stuff like that. And that was really, he's kind of who turned me on to, because he and I actually did a podcast where we were talking about climbing mechanisms, because I was looking at like the single rope, like unassisted or single rope assisted kind of climbing style or whatever, where you're really not using sticks or anything really at all. You're using like an arborist style of climbing or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think it's gonna work. That's gonna work for me necessarily. And so, because that was really what I was trying to possibly thinking of doing. And then I ended up meeting up with the guys from Wild Edge while we were at Harrisburg. And actually, I'm having him come on the show here in the not so distant future. And I started looking at the steps a little bit more closely. I had a couple buddies who had run them in the past, and I think just like anything, man, saddles aren't for everybody. Some guys are gonna always hunt out of tree stands, and it's not because they couldn't hunt out of a saddle; they just prefer it.
Right.
Some guys prefer sticks. Some guys prefer like the Wild Edge type steps. Some guys, it's like I have friends that use those steps. I have other friends who don't use them, who just, it's not their thing, So it's, the cool thing about saddle hunting that I really like about it is it's almost like choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You kind of build your system to what's going to work best for you and what you prioritize. Like, so for me, it's like I prioritize like less bulk, lightweight. And if I have to work a little harder to make it work, like I'm okay with that, as long as like I'm able to like not have to carry 40 pounds of shit on my back.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because some of the places that I hunt are, especially upstate, are long hauls.
Yeah.
I've never tracked it like how actually far it is, but it feels like 2 miles, and it actually very well could be.
Yeah.
And I just never tracked it, and I'm all about the lightweight, and I like to film my hunts, and if I want to walk 2.5 miles into my set, I want it to be as lightweight as possible to be able to carry my camera gear, because that stuff gets super, super heavy.
Yep. I'll actually film more this year because of the saddle, because it's actually, for me, it's easier to film out of the saddle than it is out of a tree stand. And I don't have the extra weight, so I'm willing to carry my camera equipment.
Exactly.
Before, it's like I wouldn't take it because I'm like, man, I really don't want like 2 more things in my pack.
That's when I would always have my tree stands preset.
Yep.
In a spot, and like, oh man, I didn't kill a deer because they were 50 yards over that way, and I didn't feel like I'm just too lazy to take the tree stand down and move it. I'm like, oh well, maybe one will swing by here.
maybe I'll decide to take a left turn.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow's the day.
Right, nice.
But
so I know we're going on a little over an hour here, but there's one big question I wanted to ask you. That we I mentioned this on a previous podcast, and I did it with Wilson, my buddy Wilson that came on. And, it's one of these things where, as hunters, like, we're super passionate about hunting. We love hunting, but when we get asked why we hunt, we sometimes have a hard time answering it, right? Like we feel it, we feel the answer, you know what I mean? But we have a hard time putting into words why we hunt. And there's really never ever a right or a wrong answer necessarily. It's more that there's just, how we articulate it, I guess,
Right.
And so I did the first one with my friend Wilson, where we talked about it a little bit and went through the different reasons why he hunts. I talked a little bit about why I hunt, and really what this is for me is to talk to a bunch of guys who, like you, I consider a friend.
Yeah.
Some guys who maybe I don't know as well, right, that I'll have on and we'll talk about it or whatever, because I want to get everyone's perspective to see all the different reasons why people hunt and what the different prioritizations of why they hunt are. Because really, I think it helps me better understand why I hunt, because I haven't fully got there yet.
Yeah.
And what I'm hoping is that I'm hoping it makes people think about why they hunt and maybe think about when someone asks them how to best kind of articulate it. So we position hunting in the right light.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to throw out the big question and we'll peel this onion together.
Okay.
But, so why does my good friend Tom, why does he hunt?
I would have to say the main reason why I hunt is because I spend a lot of time with my family.
Yep.
I'm with my dad. I'm with my uncles. I'm with some of my closest friends, and we're out enjoying this all together. It's more of a camaraderie. Like if, the text messages that come through, even with, the guys from Relive the Hunt, that's a separate camaraderie that we have.
Right.
You and I have our own camaraderie.
Right.
I like to be able to share the stories with people and share the hunt with people. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I hunt, because not only do I love being in the outdoors all the time,
Right.
I love sitting in my tree stand and tree stand therapy,
Yep.
like even if I don't see a deer, I a bad day in the woods is better than a good day at work.
Right.
That's I always say that to myself. So,
Right.
but yeah, man, there's something about like being there with your family and being able to harvest a deer or witness somebody harvest one of their biggest bucks ever, or even just a buck.
Mm-hmm.
It turns into a party. Because I hunt with at least 12 to 15 guys during that archery week that I'm there.
Right.
And that's like everybody wants to shoot their deer that week because of how fun it is.
Right.
Because
they get to share it with all the other guys that are there.
we get to share it. We get to tell the stories. We get to relive it. We get to drink beers about it. And
Yep.
and just, and then on top of that, you have somebody always there to help you.
Right.
Like I see some guys that hunt on their own and they never get to experience that camaraderie. They just do it because they're very passionate about what they do, or they need the meat and stuff like that. And they go out and hunt to, provide for their family. And that's great. But, there's a whole other world out there.
Right.
Of sharing this success with others.
Right.
Whether you're the one being successful or not.
Right.
And that's what drives me to go all the time, because I like not only that I'm super passionate about it and I enjoy the meat and I use the meat as much as I possibly can. Like, I would say the bigger reason for me would be just
sharing it with folks.
Sharing it. Like,
yeah. Being able to be with that
being
group of
able to
folks.
help somebody. Like even in turkey season, like I get more fun out of watching somebody else get a turkey than
Right.
I do. Like, my heart pounds just as hard.
Right.
If I took you turkey hunting and I called in a turkey for you and you got them,
right,
I'd be like, that was so cool. Like,
right. Be jacked.
Yeah, I'd be probably more pumped up than you were.
Right.
That's how I get. Like,
right.
Because I was able to share it with you, witness it, and I know the exact emotions, how you feel of the excitement and adrenaline and everything that went through you, and that's what you get to share with everybody else.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, people do it for so many different reasons. It's like I definitely enjoy being around my buddies. You know what I mean? It's like I'm one of those guys where I definitely like to hunt like alone a lot, but it's for the reason that like for me, I do enjoy like the sharing aspect of it, because it's like one of my favorite things during the course of the year, especially because you live close and Wilson lives close is like the constant text messaging with the two of you, because it's like we're doing this stuff right down the street from each other.
Yep.
Which is really cool. But the kind of solitude and like therapeutic aspect that I get, it's that alone time that I like, where it's like where I'm getting that therapy, you know what I mean, from the outdoors. And that to me is a big reason why, you know what I mean, that I hunt. There's also the health side of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like I like to eat healthy, I like to live healthy, and it's like, and I feel like there's this thing of like, if I'm gonna eat meat, I should probably kind of have a hand in it, right? I don't like other people doing my dirty work. I'm not saying that, everyone has to hunt necessarily, right? If people don't want to, that's fine. But for me, I just feel better about it. Like I sleep better at night knowing that, like, the only blood on someone's hands was my own.
Yep.
You know what I mean? For this meal or whatever.
No doubt.
You and I were talking a little bit as we were, Tom and I were actually at the archery range shooting before we came and did the podcast. We started talking a little bit about just, guys that we know or that we see, that are super ate up with hunting and stuff like that, just hardcore hunter dudes that we're all buddies with and stuff like that. And the one thing we started talking about a little bit was just, I made the comment and then we stopped because we're like, oh, we got to talk about this on the podcast. We can't use it now. But I was like, it's kind of weird that, like, as I'm getting, as I've gotten older, I guess, I'm more of like a whitetail freak nut, hunting nut, passionate, ate up with it, more so probably than ever in my life, right? It's like, it seems like every year it gets worse.
Yeah, no doubt.
I was like, but for some reason, I don't know what it's been, but it's like, I feel like even though that has like the passion for it has continued to increase, like my ability to balance like my personal life, like real life, with my hunting life, I've been able to kind of strike a better balance, even though I spend more time doing hunting stuff than I did 5 years ago.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure how I've done it, because it's like I scout more now than I ever have. It's like I spend more time looking at topo maps. I spend more time planning than I ever have before. But I feel like maybe this might be a better question for my wife.
Yeah.
To be honest.
How do I balance this?
Yeah. Or am I? Because maybe I think that I am.
No,
and it's like, no, you're not. I have not seen you in a week.
You call that balance?
Right. Yeah. But I'm just curious if you kind of have the same thing, or if you feel the same way, because I feel like right now it's like I'm ate up with it more than I ever been before, but I feel like I have more balance than I've ever had before, where it's almost like I'm seeing things more clearly, if that makes sense. It's just really weird.
Yeah, I think that just comes with our age and maturity levels. That that's how it progresses.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I am in the same boat as you. I never scouted as much as I used to.
Right.
I never paid as much attention to topo maps, and now turkey season a lot of times turns into deer scouting for me when I'm not hearing turkeys gobble.
Right.
I actually just go to places where I deer hunt and hope that I hear a turkey.
Right.
And I'm scouting.
Right.
And it's very beneficial for deer season, because that's stuff I've never done before. When I turkey hunted, I straight turkey hunted. I never thought about, let me look for some buck grubs or some sign, and the leaves aren't on green up here yet,
Right.
So it's easy to transition right into deer season when you're up there, because it still looks like deer season up there.
Right.
Upstate in the early spring.
Yep.
Yeah, man. But but I still go out and I play golf with my buddies, go out and have beers, watch some sports games, and live that normal life that everybody else lives, not just 100% focused on hunting. But even though I don't think a day goes by that I don't think about it or talk about it.
100%, man. Like 100%. So it's funny. Something that you said there just made me think of something where it's like, I feel like I'm better. And like, look, I'm going to put out a disclaimer for everyone out there listening. Like, when I say better, I don't think that I'm like the world's greatest hunter. I don't think that I'm better than another person or whatever.
Right.
When I say better, it's just in the context of like how I'm progressing myself, like my own benchmark against myself. Right. But I feel like because I try to take some time, I won't say time away, but I try to like do other things, that I feel like it has made me a better hunter, because whenever I'm doing it, I'm fully focused on it.
You got to step away.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things, almost like when you're training, like you don't you don't get faster or stronger if you train every single day. Like you have to have the rest day in order for your
Right.
body to recoup, so it can max out again, 2 days from now or whatever.
Yep.
I feel like it's been the same almost for me for hunting. It's like the more I've been able to kind of at times disconnect from it and get involved in something else that's interesting, when I come back to it, it's like I see things differently. I see it more clearly because I'm not hazed over from continuing to stare at the same things over and over again.
So I have a question for you. Could you hunt every single day?
No, I couldn't.
Yeah, me
I mean,
neither.
I know the popular answer for a lot of guys would be like, yeah, I can hunt every single
wanna
day.
hunt.
No, but it's like, I'm be honest with you, man. It's like I go on some of those hunts, like, I'll go out with Chad to Ohio and we'll hunt for 9 days straight or whatever. And
You're burning out by the end.
oh, dude, at the 10th day, it's like, I mean, by day like 5, 6, it's like I'm like praying to the God of rain
To just sleep in for a morning.
to give me like a soaker the next morning so I can sleep in for like an extra 2 hours, just because it's like my body's thrashed, my mind's thrashed, I need a reset,
That's what the beauty of, for me, which I like this, and people probably won't believe me because they'll be like, oh no, you can hunt every day. I'm like, no, I actually enjoy time off sometimes. Like that's why I like that my cabin's 4 hours away, because I go up there, I get my fix, I come home and I really think about it.
Yep.
I wish I could spend 3 days in a row up there or hunt Sunday.
Right.
So so it makes it much more worth it as for a trip than just a Saturday hunt. But you're yearning for that next trip, and that next trip is so much more valuable, and it means much more to you, whether you even see a deer or not. You're just happy to be out there because I just didn't do this for 5 days straight.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I love hunting. I couldn't do it every day. To me, it's like I like that. I like to have a break. It's just my nature too. It's like I have a lot of interests. Now hunting is a passion, so it's a little different. But I like to do a lot of different things. And I feel like doing other things help you have perspective when you do the thing that you're passionate about, because you look at it differently, right? It's just I think that you can't. I feel like whenever I get all engulfed in hunting, like I have to try to step away. Usually, like every summer, I have to try to make myself as hard as it is, because you're just getting ready to get into the throes of it. I have to try to make myself shut it off for like a week if I can, and then go back and look at like all the trail camera photos and stuff like that, and relook at the topo maps and stuff like that. Because all summer long, I'm so jacked up about it. I look at it and I see the same things over and over again, and I come to the same conclusions over and over again. And then I always find like if I just walk away from it, it's usually like we'll go on a family vacation, and it's like a week where I'm not doing anything deer related. I'm not looking at trail camera pictures. I'm not pulling cards. I'm not shooting my bow. I'm not doing anything. And then
Something pops in your head.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
I'll be driving like the 7 hours home from wherever we're at, and I'll be like, I'll just look at my wife and be like, I just figured it out.
Yep.
I know where he's living. You know what I mean? It's like it took like getting away from it for a little while to go like, oh, this thing was staring me right in the face.
Yep.
And I think it also helps in the fact that like, a ton of guys that like, whether it's a Zach, Fehrenbach, the hunting public, whether it's talking to Dan Enfald or whoever, it's like one of the things that I've been picking up on more and more that I'm trying to do is like reading hot sign and letting the hot sign tell you where to go. And so really, if you're doing that and you're staying true to like, if I'm really truly trying to see what the deer are doing in that moment and hunt them based on that, all the stuff that I see before is just historical information for me to make a decision, go, this played out like this before based on seeing something similar, right? But you really should just be making your decision based on that hot sign that you're seeing, saying hot sign here, this is where I'm hunting, right? And I feel like I sometimes get in my own head by looking at all the stuff so far in advance and spending so much time with it and driving myself crazy over it that when it comes time to make that decision, I go, nope, I studied this stuff for 6 months. This is what's going to happen. This is what that deer's supposed to do. This is what and it's like, and at the end of the day, that sign that's staring me right in the face is telling me something completely different.
Yep.
And I've oftentimes walked by it and not paid attention to it, and then learned that it bit me in the ass. So
no doubt. I feel that way as well too. It's like you're looking at the top of a map, and like the deer's got to go through there, and normally they would.
Right.
But 40 yards to your right is where the sign's at. But you set up here because I studied this all summer long. I know.
Right. It's like you almost want to will you being right into existence.
You're right. You are right.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not in the right spot.
Yeah, you're in the right area.
Yeah, for sure. And like you did, their homework paid off, but now you have to, fine tooth that, fine comb it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But all right, man. We've been at it for almost an hour and a half, dude. I know you got a little bit of a drive back home.
Yep.
You got an early roll call for the morning.
6 a.m. start.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you get going. But before I let you get going, brother, if you wouldn't mind, let folks know where they can find you on social media and find out more about you.
Okay. Yeah. On Instagram, I'm at T_Titlow19 on IG. Facebook, Tom Titlow. I don't use Facebook that much. I kind of just scroll through it.
Yep.
Also, check out Relive the Hunt. Manage that page as well as a few other guys, Cole, Greg, and
all good dudes.
Yeah, all good guys. We all kind of throw content on there when we have it.
Yep.
And we also do a podcast as well. Not every week, kind of just do it when we can. It's not, we do it for fun. We don't do it for any other reason besides just having fun. So
sharing the
if
stories.
you guys want to check that out, Relive the Hunt, hence the name.
Yep.
We just tell hunting stories.
Cool.
Get into a little bit of detail, but not crazy. But yeah, that's where you can find me. My phone number is.
Actually, I think I saw it on a bathroom stall somewhere.
867-5309.
Yeah, exactly.
That was mine.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, guys, just check me out, give me a follow, and make sure to give Truth from the Stand and Clint a follow as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, brother. We got to do this more often.
Absolutely.
We have to make sure we hang out outside of like Louisville and Indiana.
Wapiti Wednesday.
Wapiti Wednesday. There you go. Sounds good. We're out.
Peace.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank Tom for joining. We'd, of course, like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for us. Before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Exodus Outdoor Gear, Skull Brew Coffee Company, Obsession Bows, Ramcap Broadheads, Trophy Taker Rests, and Dead Downwind. And until next time, we'll see you.
November's on my heels, makes me proud, makes me steal. I could show you through the door, I ain't welcome anymore. A long time coming, if it